Neil, I'm relieved to be up here. They gave me 5 children to look after And also, Neil said, would you like to read? I said, yes, I'll read. You know, I thought, it'll only be a few chapters. A few verses. There's a few verses and long names. So if I say the names wrong, you'll understand. Right?
You will take one side.
Right. 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 12. 12, that's right, to 29, isn't it? Yeah. Now David was the son of Ephraim, of Bethlehem, Judah, whose name was Jesse, and he had 8 sons. And the man went among men for an old man in the days of Saul. And the 3 eldest sons of Jesse went and followed Saul to the battle. And the names of his 3 sons that went to the battle were Eliab the firstborn, the next unto him Abinab, and the 3rd Shammah. And David was the youngest, and the 3 eldest followed Saul. But David went and returned from Saul to feed his father's sheep at Bethlehem. And the Philistine drew near morning and evening, and presented himself 40 days. And Jesse said unto David his son, Take now thy brethren, and Ephraim of this parched corn, and these 10 loaves, and run to the camp to thy brethren, and carry these 10 cheeses unto the captain of their 1,000, and look how thy brethren fared, and take their pledge. Now Saul and they and all the men of Israel were in the valley of Elah, and fighting with the Philistines. And David rose up early in the morning, and left the sheep with the keeper, and took and went as Jesse had commanded him. And he came to the trench as the host was going forth to fight, and shouted for the battle. For Israel and the Philistines had put the battle in array, army against army. And David left his carriage in the hand of the keeper of the carriage, and ran into the army, and came and saluted his brethren. And he talked with them. Behold, there came up a champion, the Philistines of Gath, Goliath by name, out of the armies of the Philistines, and spake according to the same words. And David heard them. And all the men of Israel, when they saw the man, fled from him, and were sore afraid. And the men of Israel said, Have ye seen this man that is come up? Surely to defy Israel is he come up, and it shall be that the man who killeth him, the king will enrich him with great riches, and will give him his daughter, and make his father's house free in Israel. And David spake to the men that stood by him, saying, What shall be done to that man that killeth the Philistine, and taketh away the reproach from Israel? For who is this uncircumcised Philistine, that he should defy the armies of the living God? And the people answered him after this manner, saying, So shall it be to the man that killeth him. And Eliab, his eldest brother, heard when he spake unto the men. And Eliab's anger was kindled against David, and he said, Why camest thou down hither, and with whom hast thou left those few sheep in the wilderness? I know thy pride, and the naughtiness of thy pride, thine heart, for thou art come down that thou mightest see a battle. And David said, What have now done? What have I now done? Is there not a cause? And he turned from him towards another, and spake after the same manner. And the people answered him again, for a man, and now 45, is it 45? 52. So it's 45 to 52. Then said David to the Philistine, Thou comest to me with a sword, and with a spear, and with a shield, but I come to thee in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, whom thou hast defied. This day will the Lord deliver thee unto thine hand, and I will smite thee, and take thine head from thee. And I will give the carcass to the host of the Philistines this day unto the fowls of the air, and to the wild beasts of the field, and all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel. And all this assembly shall know that the Lord saveth not with sword and spear, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you unto our hands. And it came to pass, when the Philistines arose and came and drew nigh to meet David, that David hasted and ran towards the army to meet the Philistines. And David put his hand into his bag, and took thence a stone, and slang it, and smote the Philistines in his forehead, that the stone sunk right into the forehead, and he fell upon his face to the earth. So David prevailed over the Philistines with a sling and with a stone, and smote the Philistine, and slew him. But there was no sword in the hand of David. Therefore David ran and stood upon the Philistine, and took his sword, and drew it out of the sheath therefore, and slew it, and cut off his head therewith. And when the Philistines saw their champion was dead, they fled. And the men of Israel and of Judah arose and shouted to pursue the Philistines, until thou came to the valley and to the gates of Ekron, and the wounded of the Philistines fell down by the way to Sharam, even unto Gath, and unto Ekron.
Probably one of the most well-known stories, even outside the churches, isn't it? It's something you come across in everyday life. You come across it in sport, when the underdog wins. Oh, that's the right David and Goliath. And so it's something that people are familiar with. We're familiar with it as well. And even more so now after that nice reading of Carol. But I want to think about the other giants that David slew that day. We know that he defeated Goliath, don't we? But he took out 5 stones from the brook, and I heard a sermon once about Goliath's 4 brothers. If they turned up, he had to stone each of them as well. I've been thinking though about some other giants that David had to deal with before Goliath could ever fall. And so there's 4 other giants in David's life that he had to face with and had to contend with. And that's what I'd like to just have a chat about this evening. Let's stop and look at some of the things. Because some of these will be familiar to us. Some of these battles that we need to face as well. And the same God that was with David, the same God that was helping him, is the same God that's by our side today and helps us. So, what are the giants who were there? Well, the first one was one very close to home. Nothing to do with the Philistines, nothing even to do with Saul's army. It was to do with his own family. Family misunderstanding. Family not appreciating what David's calling was and what David had to do. It's a funny thing sometimes that we struggle to see God's hand upon those nearest and dearest to us. The problem is we have prejudice because we know them. We know their weaknesses, we know their failings. But God does as well. And God still uses them anyway. And sometimes we don't see what is in front of our own nose sometimes. And David was no different than that. Let's look at some of the verses that talk about this. Well, the first one I found is in verse 13. It talks about the 3 eldest boys, the 3 oldest sons of Jesse, had gone to follow Saul to the battle. The names of his 3 sons who went to the battle were Eliab, the firstborn, next to him, Aminadab, and then the 3rd, Shammah. So it was done on natural selection. The 3 eldest had gone to fight in the army. But what had happened the chapter before? This is what we looked at last week. The chapter before, David had been anointed king in the presence of his brothers. And yet he is still being treated as the youngest. He's still being treated as the one who's only good to look after the sheep. We found out at the end of chapter 16 that he actually had a job as armor bearer to Saul. And yet we read that although he was an armor bearer to Saul, there were times he would come back to the family and he would pick up the same job that he did before. Well, that tells me a lot about his attitude. We looked this morning about the humility of Christ, isn't it? Isn't it lovely that after David had been anointed, after David had gone into the royal court, after he had been employed to play the harp to help to soothe Saul's spirit, after he had been selected as Saul's armor bearer, he could still go home and look after the sheep. I find that encouraging. He still remembered the needs of home. And it could well be that because the 3 older boys were out there, they'd been called up for the army, it could well be that he realised that Dad needed more help. But he's actually going back and he's not afraid. He's not too big to just pick up the old job and look after the sheep again. But he hadn't been asked to go with the army. Even though the anointing of God had clearly been declared, he hadn't been asked to go with the army. The misunderstandings within the family run deeper than that as well, don't they? Because we read in verse 28 and 29, something that a lot of us will be familiar with, a bit of sibling rivalry going on. A little bit of an altercation between him and the eldest brother. I know a little bit about fights with older brothers. Now Eliab, his oldest brother, heard when David spoke to the men. And Eliab's anger was aroused against David. It's a strong word that, isn't it? His anger made him angry that David was there talking. And Eliab said, "Why did you come down here? With whom have you left those few sheep in the wilderness?" What a put down that is, isn't it? Don't forget your job. Don't forget who you are. You've just got a couple of sheep to look after in the wilderness. It's so belittling, isn't it? I know your pride and the insolence of your heart. What a sad saying that is. Eliab is declaring that he knows the heart of David. He thinks he knows. He doesn't know at all. God has already declared in earlier chapters that David is after his own heart. And Eliab is here saying your heart is full of pride and insolence. So is that the heart of God? No. You couldn't be wider of the mark if you tried. I know your pride and the insolence of your heart, for you have come down to see the battle. He accused him of just being curious. He accused him of being above his station. Actually, they held him below his station. David says to him, "What have I done now?" You have those conversations sometimes where you're in an argument and you're thinking, well, what's this all about? David had actually come to bring them provisions. It tells us in verse 22 that he came and he greeted his brothers. He had been asked to find out how they were. And he's a bit like Joseph here. He's faithful to the command that his father gives him. Because when he gets there, he doesn't take a third hand off anybody else. His father is asked, how are your brothers doing? And he wants to be able to look his father in the eye and say, this is how they're doing, and I know it's right because I've seen them myself. He doesn't take a report off anybody else. He goes to see the brothers for himself. He comes and he greets them. So his heart to the brothers is right. But their heart to him is not right at all. And even though Eliab was there when David was anointed by Samuel, so easily he allows thoughts to come into his mind. One of the great challenges we have is to think better of people. We often are looking for the trap. We're often looking for the catch. Very often the problem isn't out there, it's you. Very often it's not people who are seeking to do us any harm at all, we just think they are. We You've got to deal with perceptions of man. And Eliab has a problem. He's got a wrong attitude towards David. And even though God has only declared him as his anointed one, Eliab still feels it's okay to have a go at him and to accuse him of things which aren't even right. So he's got deep misunderstandings, even within his own family. If David had been a weaker character, that confrontation would have been enough to send him home. And who would have dealt with Goliath then? Thank God he had the strength of character to stay, even though his brother didn't want him there. Sometimes you do have to be stubborn for God. As I mentioned before, we have to give an account for our calling. Don't allow other people to tell you what it is. Find out from God what it is, and once you know what it is, be faithful in it. He had the problem of family misunderstanding. That was a giant he had to sort out. It could have stopped him in his tracks. The other problem that he had was his age. Age is a funny thing, because it can be a barrier at the start and the end of our lives. There's that little sweet spot in the middle. We're okay. When we're young, we think we know it all. When we're old, we wish we had the strength to do it all. And somewhere in the middle, we have that sweet spot where we have a little bit more wisdom and we've still got enough strength. But the reality is, all throughout our life, we have to combat something. And David has a problem because he is young. And that's a problem because people make assumptions. We've already seen the fact that his 3 elder brothers had been selected and chosen and called up to the army. He had been left behind. It tells us verses 14 and 15 that he was the youngest. He's still looking after the sheep. But it wasn't just his brothers that had a problem with his age. Because even when he put himself forward as the volunteer to take on this giant of a man, look what Saul says to him in verse 33. Saul said to David, "You are not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for you are a youth." You're a boy. You're too young. You can't do this. So his own family thought he was too young, and the king thought he was too young. So he's got this problem with family misunderstandings. He's got to get over the fact that God has called him in his youth. And he's got to work for God to do. And if God has chosen you, you're not too young. And it's also true at the end of your life. Because at the end of our days, we have the opposite problem. We now think we're too old. We think we're past it. And God still has a work for us to do. And age, as Carol has proved to us, is but a number. And at 79, you can jump up on an aeroplane. We have to get over the tag sometimes, don't we? We have to see that God sees us as individuals. God loves us, and God has a work and a plan for us. And there's no age restriction on that. Phil's own testimony, I think you were about 6 when you Phil, when God called him. 4 years of age when God called him. We heard a testimony of John, 16. And then he passes into glory at 86, 70 years of service to God. You see, you're never too young. But then you're never too old either. You had the sad news about Pam and Ralph's testimony as he came to the Lord later in life. One of Ralph's regrets is that he didn't know God earlier. But thank God he knows him now. The thief on the cross, being crucified next to Christ, literally left it to the last minute, didn't he? Before he found his Saviour. But he found him. And he witnessed for him. He declared from the cross, leave him alone, he's guiltless. This man has done nothing wrong. He declared him as a king. Lord, remember me when you come into your kingdom. During all the hostility that Christ was facing, even coming from the other side of the cross, what a sweetness that is. when this other thief is there declaring him to be the king and asking for his help. What a ray of light that is on such a sad, sad day. So family misunderstanding, our age, giants that David had to deal with, giants that sometimes we have to face. What about fear? The Bible tells us, doesn't it, that the fear of man is a snare. Being afraid of what people think. We fight it all our lives. What if I say that? What if I do that? It tells us in verse 11 of chapter 17, when Saul and all Israel heard these words of the Philistine, the challenge that came out from Goliath, they were dismayed and greatly afraid. From the king down, they were all afraid. This giant of a man was challenging anybody to come out from the camp of Israel. Send whoever you want. Send your champion. And we'll do one-to-one combat. But don't worry about the battle. We'll just face off one against the other. And let that decide which nation will serve the other. If somebody had faith to see it, what a lovely way to avoid a pile of bloodshed. What a lovely way for God to show his glory and his power. But you see, the fear of losing was there. Not the joy or the excitement of winning, the fear of losing. Being afraid of the challenge that's before you. And that's what fear does. It paralyzes you. It stops you operating, doesn't it? That phrase, frozen with fear, it has truth in it. As Christians, we need to be so careful that we don't allow fear to dominate our thoughts and to stop our actions. Fear. Verse 32 tells us, David said to Saul, let no man's heart fail. Let no man's heart fall because of him, because of Goliath. Your servant will go and fight with this Philistine. What a lovely spirit that is, isn't it? Nobody needs to worry. Don't let anybody be concerned about this. And I like the phrase, he doesn't say, because I'm going to sort him out. He says, your servant. He gives honour to Saul. Even though Saul is afraid to tackle Goliath himself, David refers to himself as Saul's servant. He's still got a right attitude towards Saul and the authority that he has. So family misunderstanding, age, the fear of the actual fight itself, and then probably the one that is capable of causing the most problem of all, unbelief. The giant of unbelief. And Saul says to him, you are not able. Saul looked at him and thought, no, you can't do it. Saul didn't believe it. Did David believe in himself? No, he didn't. If you look at the words of David's own testimony, it tells us in verse 37, moreover, David said, the Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and from the paw of the bear, he will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine. You see, he knew where his confidence lay. It wasn't in his ability, it was in his God. And the lovely thing is, he's sure publicly facing up to Goliath, but privately, he's already defeated the lion and the bear. God has already proven himself to David. David isn't going out on a whim. David isn't going out for the first time wondering if this is going to work. David knows that God is with him. God has been tested and tried already. In that job that is so belittled by his elder brother, looking after the sheep, David has faced lions and bears already. He's already stood up to the enemies that have come his way, and he has seen that God has been with him. And why would God desert him now? And isn't that a wonderful word for all of us? as whatever circumstances and situations we face in the future, can we look back and say, the good God of Israel, the God of our soul, our Father God, He has been with us thus far. And He's not going to desert us now. The Lord who delivered me. That was his testimony to Saul. And it was the same testimony to friend and to foe. Because when he stood before Goliath, Goliath is so confident in his ability to beat this young boy. Goliath tells him, I'm going to feed you to the birds. But look at the declaration that comes back to him in verses 45 to 47. Look at what David declares to Goliath. You come to me with a sword, with a spear and with a javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts. What a lovely response that is. Yes, I can see the weapons that you've got. You can see them. But I've got something better than that. I've got something stronger than that. I've got something mightier than that. I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hand. Again, he's not boasting in himself, is he? He's boasting in God. I will strike you and take your head from you. And this day I will give the carcasses of the camp of the Philistines to the birds of the air and the wild beasts of the earth. Goliath threatened to feed him to the birds. He said, God is fighting for me, your army will be defeated. Why? That all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel. Goliath is there saying, look at me, I'm the champion of the Philistines. David is there saying, look at my God. Look at my God. And for all of us, we don't stand up against the enemies and say, look at me, look at us, we're stronger than you. We tell them, look at our God. What does David go on to say in verse 47? Then all this assembly shall know that the Lord does not save with sword and spear, for the battle is the Lord's. We often forget that, don't we? The battle is the Lord's. He doesn't deliver through strength. He doesn't deliver through the way the world works. He works better. The battle is the Lord's, and He will give you into our hands. Notice what David says there. He says, all this assembly. Who's he addressing? He's not only addressing the army of the Philistines, he's addressing the army of Israel as well. All that are gathered here will witness what God is doing this day. Yes, the Israelites will be there and they will see that God is the God that He claims to be. Israel will see that the champion they've been cowering from, the one they've been hiding from, God is able to deliver him into their hand. And the Philistines will see their champion, the man that they are leaning on, that he is to be removed. We know the outcome, don't we? One stone was enough. One stone directed by God from David's sling smacked Goliath straight in the forehead. Took him down straight away. And he had the shame of having his head cut off with his own sword. David had to borrow Goliath's sword. What effect did it have on the Philistines when they saw the champion dead? Well, it says they fled, they ran. But look at the effect it had on the Israelites. Verse 52, now the men of Israel and Judah arose and shouted and pursued the Philistines. Isn't it lovely? You see the change just because David was willing to make a stand for God. And the Israelites who had been cowed, the Israelites who were on the back foot, they were now chasing. And they were taking their example from David. Because it tells us that when David went to fight Goliath, it tells us in verse 51, David ran. He ran to kill him. But it also tells us in verse 49 that he ran to meet him when he was fighting. Sorry, verse 48, David hurried and ran towards the army to meet the Philistines. He wasn't stood there waiting to see what would happen. He was so confident that God was with him that he was running towards Goliath. He was running towards the challenge that was before him. Why? Because he knew that God was with him. A simple sermon in some ways, a text that we're very familiar with. But it does us well to think about some of the giants that are in our life. Some of the things that we have to face. And some of these battles aren't just one-offs, they keep cropping up. Not to be afraid of being misunderstood. That's not to say that you go out of your way to antagonize people, it doesn't mean that at all. But it's just a reality that people often won't understand what God is doing in your life. But you have to be certain. And if you are certain, you know what God is doing, and stay true to him. Don't worry about age, it is but a number. Don't worry you're too young, you're too old. It makes no difference. God has a work for all of us. Don't allow fear, the fear of others, the fear of what God will give us to do. Let's trust him. He's a loving Father. We can trust him with our life more than we can trust him with ourselves. And unbelief, that grace curse, isn't it? That's there at the root of all sin because it undermines the authority of God. Let's believe what God is willing to do in our lives. Because God has much work to do. He's not retired yet. God's work is to be completed in every generation. Let us pray that God shows us what he wants us to do in the generation that we serve to. Amen.